Oh, those darn legal problems that always try to bring us down. So, again, planning for everything and certain things are going to happen, but the contract becomes the best friend to the event planner. So again, hotel representative, whoever, conditions that will govern their relationship before, during, and after a meeting, convention, expo, or event. Yes. Define. And I mean define. If there's a roadblock, find a creative path. I understand that. Timing is everything. Be flexible. Yes. But cover yourself, right? And listen to what is going on in this relationship with the client, the venue, whatever it's going to be. Go into negotiations with the plan. Yes. Location or service provider, be thorough. You don't want to say, well, if this didn't work, I'm going to call them out and say, well, somebody else wants to do it. That's not what we're talking about. But what if it doesn't work? Assume nothing. Always assume nothing. As specific as you possibly can be in the language. I can't stress that enough. Don't accept it because it's pre-print in the contract. Read the small print, mutuality in the contract's provisions. You need to really read over this contract. For a venue, for food, for entertainment. It's the nuances that'll get you, and the little small details that you don't prepare for that'll kill you every time. Hotel contracts, if you're talking about that, revenue streams, details, room rates, function space, get the changes in writing. Someone that's working at the front desk that doesn't know what's going on knows that the rate for the hotel is $300 a night. Someone walks in and says, no, I'm supposed to pay $175. Why? So it's that communication between all departments, and you're part of the blah blah blah. Let's go back a chapter. Experience. I understand. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's $175. Function space, when it'll be finalized. Any changes that do happen, and they will, get them in writing. Actual name of the parties involved. Listen, if a change has to happen, and a guest comes up to you and says, no. They were supposed to serve free drinks until 10:30, then I need to know who Mrs. Smith is so I can walk up to Mrs. Smith and say, Mrs. Smith, somebody in this party is telling us that Mrs. Smith is going to go, Or, oh yeah, you know what, that's our CFO, I apologize, yeah, can we please do that? How much is the business worth to the hotel or the event site? Again, is it worth it? Sometimes it's not, like we said. Position the meeting in the best light. Where can the parties be flexible? Location and type. Rack rates and yield management we'll talk a lot about in class, and you've heard that in our other classes if you take those. Acceptance, offer, consideration, and offers can be terminated by a couple different reasons. But like we said, once we sign stuff, and there's a guarantee for money, and you decide that you want to cancel. This is a terrible thing to say, but I've been in the business long enough to say not everybody gets married. And so when they come meet with me 6 months before their big day, and I say, okay, great, we're going to have a couple of deadlines that are coming up in your contract, and you're going to owe me this percentage of the money or this much of a deposit by this day, which is non-refundable. So if in the course of that happening in your big day gets called off for whatever reason, which is terrible, what happens? Right? Because we're securing space in an area and possibly rooms for you and your other folks in your party, and we have to be compensated for alienating other guests because of that contract saying you need that area. Again, without getting too into a lot of this stuff where I don't want you to be like, okay, you need to know this law, but there are certain things you have to make sure that are there. So, the goal is not to go back on your word for a contract or try to alter the contract. It's more than anything, it is to make sure that it is airtight as possible. And as we said in this chapter, we are, if at all possible in a perfect world, looking at each other going, right, great. Sign here. Okay. Act of God, force majeure. Look, things happen. But we want those to be the only reasons that they would happen. Obviously, look, we don't want a tornado to happen or a hurricane or something like that to happen. But you can understand I'm not going to charge you for something if our hotel's flooded. And you couldn't have your event if you wanted to. That's not rain. That's a flood, right? So again, resolution, any kind of damages, the liability that's incurred from an event. When I use the example of someone coming up and saying, no, the bar's still supposed to be open. If you've ever worked an event or been to an event and you're not the person paying, typically the person paying is usually not the person that I have a huge issue with. It's a guest. And I use the example of alcohol, the amount of times that we have had guests that, for lack of a better word, need to stop drinking. And let's be completely honest, a lot of that is probably on our end because they've probably been overserved. I can't go, you're not paying the bill, tough crap, screw you. Still have to work with that guest, but I need, who's the person to be in contact with to talk about? Like, oh, you need to keep serving that person because, the amount of events that I've worked where someone's like, don't ever cut off the person that's paying the bill. Wrong. And that's why when we put this stuff up here about risk management, crisis management, again, nothing is going to go wrong in a majority of the events that we do. But that is never to say, what if? And that is being prepared for what if. Third-party liability, damage to property, weather, security, insurance. The more important the person is, the more well-known the person is, the tougher the event is going to be. This young lady has won 2 Academy Awards, and she's going to get married, and she wants the ceremony to be here, and she's going to invite 200 people. And if any outlet gets a picture from this wedding, then she is going to sue your hotel for $500,000. That's a legitimate contract that can be written. Okay, and we have to make sure that no one crashes this wedding and tries to get a picture of this Academy Award winner or a nominee, right? That stuff has to make sure that it works. And that's part of it. And again, what is our response if someone crashes? What do we do? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot. ADA, like we said, reasonable accommodation. And you'll hear me talk in a lot of other classes about reasonable accommodation. That could be a separate class, to be honest with you. But having the ability to, as reasonably as possible, accommodate that person is what you can do. You're not expected to build an extension onto the side of the building for one person for one event. Okay? But parking, space out front, something like that. You understand what I'm saying? And again, also for hiring. But those public accommodations can be, look, you wanted to have this on the balcony overlooking the ocean, and the only way to get up to that balcony is through steps. This building's 200 years old. Okay, stuff like that. So stuff that you need to look for. I would tell you with music, if you've been to an event and there's a DJ and the DJ's playing your favorite jams, as the kids like to say, which I don't think they do, and you go, well, I know that's a song by Justin Timberlake, but that doesn't sound like Justin Timberlake singing that song. That's copywriting. Okay? If they come in and they play somebody from our artists that you've heard of before, it's because they've paid the rights to that. Because technically, if somebody were to come in and hear that music playing, and the person didn't have the rights to play it, whether it's the venue or the entertainment, you're going to get sued. and it's not going to look good. So any kind of patents or trademarks that go beyond the company that you're working for. So again, making sure all your bases are covered. Hey, this DJ, they contracted out with this DJ and he's coming in. Great. Can I have the DJ's information because we use another DJ, and if you're going to use him, I need to talk to him or her about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it to make sure that they're in compliance. Fair labor standards, like we talked about, overtime, exemptions, comp time, all this stuff. Listen, this isn't the kind of a course for to talk about the legal issues of hiring and firing, but if we're going to have a bunch of people working, here's the thing about events. They're not 8 to 5. You can put in 40 hours in 2 days working an event, working a wedding, working a exposition. So we have to make sure that we're treating our employees fairly. Look, as an owner-operator, I don't want to pay overtime. You don't want to pay overtime, but we all want to get paid overtime. So it's very, very carefully figured out how this has to happen. And if they work 40 hours in 2 days, 41 hours, you're paying them overtime. It's what it is. Ethics is critical. Again, what will be done to get a contract? Let's don't go there. Be ethical. Okay, don't overestimate costs just to make money. If I told you it's $1,000 to rent a room and I told the next person it was $2,000, something's wrong. If all other conditions are the same. Use of intellectual material, offering of gifts, like we talked about, all these different things. You don't want to be known as that person that does that for one client and not for another, because it's shady, to be honest with you. Best practices, again, laws that seem unrelated to meetings industry that still affects the industry, yes. Intellectual property. If you do an event and your staff is in there and someone gets up to the podium and says, this technology is going to revolutionize the way we watch television. And someone's like, whoa, and takes a picture or says, gets online or texts one of their friends and says, oh my God, you're not going to believe what I just saw. You're going to be in trouble. Right? So again, the upper hand in negotiations depends on the economy. What do we mean by that? We mean that, look, if it's a place and season that everybody wants to be at and you can charge $4,000 to rent the place, then that's what you're going to charge. And someone says, we'd like to do this, but $4,000 is pretty steep. And you're like, well, $4,000 is what the market dictates for that room at this time. We can try to move your event to another time, right? So, and it's not because we're greedy. If you can charge something, right, and that's what the market dictates, that's what you should do. That's business. That's not you saying, ooh, yeah. Look, I've worked at plenty of venues where the venue itself was the selling point. And in my mind, I knew I probably could have charged more than I did, but I based my charges on the venue based on the number of people that went and had a standard pricing sheet. And I showed everybody. The more people you had, the more you were going to pay. Nobody had a problem with that. Especially when I said, look, more people means more staff. More time, more area, because if half the people show up, I can close off half my facility and we don't need to use it. And I can turn off lights and air and sound and save money that way. So it's not me saying, it's one size fits all. But understanding the laws, very, 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 very important that you understand it, what happens just inside the confines of the event. And a lot of that goes back to liability of guests, underage drinking, over serving, at the time of the event that's going on in the hotel, can I prove that every single person in that party is staying at the hotel? I can't. When they sit there and go, oh, serve me as much as you possibly can because I just have to walk upstairs to my room. I don't know that. And I'm not basing my decision on that. I can't because of what would happen if that wasn't true. So things like that come into play sometimes, not all the time. I'm paying for this event and my daughter's 21 years old and I'm paying for this event. Well, if your daughter doesn't have ID, she's not going to be served. But I'm the client. I understand that. Here's the law. So Always have to be careful. And if you're on the right side and stay on the right side, you're not going to have a problem.